my mom and dad would always tell me that anything that was worth doing was going to be hard. And you never know how hard it's going to be when you get started, just that it takes repeated effort and repeated figuring things out.
For so long. Hey.
Hey.
Hey, what you doing?
Hey, you. What does it take to create a regenerative product, and also what does it take to restore our planet?
You're gonna go back in soon. I'm not beautiful. Are you eating? What are you doing, buddy?
And if they're really not collaborating, sometimes you just gotta give them a shake. So much of our land is losing topsoil every day. Every year we lose, 1 to 7 inches of topsoil. And in regenerative farming and regenerative practices, we're not just concerned with growing tomatoes or extracting honey. We're doing it in a way that balances the environment and the ecology at the same time. Never let your smoker go out.
Get out.
Nice work.
We're just looking at some honeycomb and some nice little worker bees doing their magic. And there's some honey and there's some drone cells.
And they look pretty healthy and happy.
And they're very happy.
Are there brood cells in this one?
Yeah, over here on the right,
Do you
on my
see some
side.
pollen or nectar?
See a lot of honey.
When done the right way, with integrity and intention and respect to the environment, I think mead is one of the most beautiful ways that we can be connected to the natural world.
Walking through the shipyards, all you hear is angle grinders and welders and, this life of just industrial fabrication. And we were on the ship fixing problems that we made from running it aground off the coast of Kuwait. So my wife realized that I would come home and not talk for half an hour, and as someone who loves to talk, that was a sign that I wasn't thriving.
That one's not moving.
And so she gently asked me that question, what I'd do with all the time, money, and energy in the world, and it really kind of set me free. I got to imagine a totally different life, and I was drawing kind of a picture in the middle of the night while I was keeping the boat safe, and it was this picture of this farmhouse with kids and bees and mead and this future that we ended up creating.
What are you trying to make if we're starting at 30 bricks?
Yeah, so we're trying to make a dessert mead today.
Okay, because 30 is pretty high, right?
Yeah, Chris, I hit 29. Close enough. Okay.
Frank is one of the most interesting people I've ever met.
So we're adding probably not quite trillions of organisms to the honey water mix, more like hundreds of billions.
An incredible human pioneering a new way of economy or product with the mead. And what's interesting is using mead and honey and working with bees as a way to encourage stewardship of our lands and of each other, of our communities. When you put products on the market that are made with integrity and are made with intention and with respect to the land, then we can create economies that are built on something that's good instead of something that's just taking from the land and or resources and not giving back. So Frank saw something in me 5 years ago and was one of the first people to donate equipment to me so that I could start saving hives. And every day he continues to believe in me as in the work that I'm doing as a beekeeper, as a bee guardian, as an educator, with the hopes that also someday I will have enough hives where I can have an excess of honey that can go to market, that can continue to share the story of the students that are going through the training and to people's tables in a beautiful way, a celebratory way of drinking mead. Like, it is one of our oldest, if not the oldest, drink that we have, alcoholic drink, and honey is our oldest medicine.
So what was most appealing about the message that Golden Coast Mead was carrying out and spreading was the regenerative nature of mead making and doing it in a positive ways, helping the bees. And that really is at the core and the foundation for my motivation to pursue this, because I think there's a lot to be done in this field. Using honey and promoting bees is factually also promoting healthy vegetal ecosystems. Unlike, say, if you look at beer, where you have a huge monoculture of grains and hops, in mead we depend on the bees' ability to gather nectar from healthy ecosystems. So we depend on ecosystems, not monocultures. Okay, Frank, so we use clover blossom honey, if I'm not mistaken, and what's special about that honey?
So clover blossom, the flavor profile on it's beautiful. It's like cinnamon, nutmeg, kind of culinary spice. The sweetness on it is moderate, so you're not going to get this intense sweetness off the front. But when we're making mead, we want the honey to really evolve into something aromatic and floral and beautiful. So clover foots that bill. Then ecologically, clover is really rad because imagine these huge just fields of clover, and people are planting clover where the soil is not great, where it's marginal. So the clover is fixing nitrogen and carbon into the soil and building soil. And so by putting bees on top of this clover, you're getting an agricultural product, honey, that's kind of a bonus on top of the healing of the soil in that place. So when we imagine a future filled with mead, we can kind of think about this beautiful relationship between meaderies, beekeepers, and landowners, where the consumer is financing the improvement of soil all over the world.
Let's get the water in. You want to tell us a little bit about the water we use?
Yeah, so we use Palmer Mountain spring water. Voila. It's been a while, but I still love it. solid. With different kinds of waters, there's a whole rabbit hole you can go into about water chemistry and maybe how it affects the dynamics of the fermentation process. But we're kind of putting that question on hold for now and just knowing that when we use this mountain spring water, it's the best. So one day we may figure out another alternative, but we love the fact that our water is local and it makes the best mead that we've made so far.
This ancient like mystery and secrets and stories that are all wrapped in this this tradition of working with bees and celebrating the gifts that come from the hive.
The first time I met Frank was in the meadery at, I think it was one of the anniversary parties. And he was one of the most energetic and passionate people I've ever met in my life.
Come on. Yeah. Everyone who wants to play, gather around the table!
I'd been coming here for a couple of years before I actually met him in person. And I was just really impressed with the product. I was really impressed with the process, the ethics behind the product. And when I had the opportunity, I decided to join.
So this is a couple of yeast nutrients that we use. They're to make the yeast happy. Honey wants to kill yeast naturally. If they're stressed, they start to make flavors that don't taste good to us humans, but when they're healthy, they make flavors that taste really good to us. So a healthy yeast is key to a healthy, delicious mead.
And is this completely organic? What is this exactly?
So this is Mercado, which is an organic yeast nutrient. It is basically dead yeast that have been raised on organic food. And then the company just dries them out and turns them into a powder and sells them to us, and we add it to our fermentation to make our yeast happy. We're pouring. This is Cam, Cameron Marwa. He's from Switzerland and India. He cold emailed 15 meaderies looking for an internship.
And after a long time working in hotels, I started getting very passionate about alcoholic fermentation and mead in particular. And so I started geeking out online, going to the forums and doing my own experiences. And slowly I started seeing which companies were out there, and Frank really stood out. I saw a bunch of videos of Frank talking about mead on YouTube, and I could see a real genuine passion there and a desire to change the world. And so out of cold email, I just contacted him, and it seems like the stars were aligned because he welcomed me with open arms.
When you know that something's good, and you know that there are other people who light up when they taste it, like that's the seed that's worth investing in and growing. Because I think as we look at transitioning our culture from kind of a quantity experience to a quality experience and a depth of connection experience, ultimately it starts in you as the maker who deeply feels it, and then figuring out how to share that with people so that they connect with it and can bring their love and joy to it and then share it with their people. That's how it perpetuates. What a pleasure it is to have you all here. This whole thing would not be real without you, right? Just as like this life would not be real without us all showing up. We have so many people here who have worked so hard to make this happen. This party specifically, Jackie, Chris, Teresa, thank you, Cam, Alex, James, John, everyone has pitched in. Sierra, who am I missing? Come on, let's say their names because this is real because of this work. So thank you all. Every continent, every culture pretty much had a mead tradition, and a lot of them were just forgotten. And so with Mead, we get to remember them, and we get to bring people back together, and we get to celebrate like that the sun's light collected by the flowers, turned into nectar, collected by the bees, turned into honey, collected by the beekeepers, turned into mead, made by the mead makers, shared by all of us. That unites us with the stars, the moon, the sun, the plants, the bees, the animals, the humans, our history, our ancestors, and this moment.
So honey is probably our oldest medicine, one of the oldest medicines that we have. And to this day, we still don't understand the full spectrum of constituents of honey, which is amazing. Honey is basically like a celebration of flowers. It's the story of all the flowers that the bees foraged on. It's a matrix of different sugars and other organic compounds to make like this most beautiful nectar. What's amazing is that honey will reflect the region that you're harvesting from.
So the first mead I had from Golden Coast Mead was the Orange Blossom, and the second one was the Orange Blossom Sour. So I had the same honey with both of their processes in making mead, and they were totally different experiences. So the Orange Blossom was just this floral, beautiful, honey-forward, semi-dry mead.
Ooh, it's so fussy, my goodness. So this is all like nectar in here.
Someone tried to sting me.
Someone tried to sting you?
Nope. Yeah, this one. It's just funny, like on my glove when they stick their butts at you.
Yeah.
I felt like this funny little vibration.
Do you want to look at it closely? Careful, there's bees on the other side. There you go.
Hi, friend.
I'm gonna give them some smoke. Oh, interesting. Maybe it's just her fuzzy body. Or it's diatomaceous earth, I think.
Oh yeah, 'cause it's on her little leg. Sorry about that.
On the other side? Okay. And you may not be able to slide it because you have to just drop it on top. Because they've got palms sticking up there.
Be happy, Easties. Be fruitful and multiply.
We were actually looking for a winery, and we saw the tasting room signs and pulled into this little business park, and couldn't find anywhere that looked like a winery. And at the end of the row of the parking lot, we saw a sign that said, "Gandalf drank mead, you should too." So we pulled in and walked into a tiny little office space where you could see the fermenters in the background. And there was two guys sitting in there, and we said, "What is mead?" And they smiled, and they gave us a taste, and we fell in love.
There we go.
Then we're putting the airlock on, which allows the CO2 to escape without letting oxygen or anything we don't want in there in.
There we go. Another batch, test batch
Started.
started.
Over the next few days, we'll add nutrient and oxygenation so that as the yeast reproduce, they reproduce with the nutrients that they need to have healthy, long lives and be able to attenuate or ferment all the way up to the desired alcohol level. And we'll monitor it by testing the gravity of the liquid, seeing how the density of the sugars changes as they're consumed by the yeast and turned into alcohol. If we need to, we'll put it under a slide on a microscope. While the fermentation's happening, we're doing specific gravity readings to monitor the progress of the fermentation curve. And then if we want immediate feedback on how our yeast are doing, and if they're staying in that curve or if they're starting to slow down, we can do yeast counts. So you take the mead as it ferments, take a couple drops, do a couple dilutions, add some dyes, and then put that liquid that you get out of that on a plate under a microscope. And with what you see there, you get an immediate feedback loop on the health and viability of your fermentation.
Basically, you get to count how many yeast cells are there in a particular amount of your mead, right? So
Yeah, cells per milliliter, and so we're in the millions of cells per milliliter of mead.
that's insane. Per milliliter, you have how many?
Like 80 million cells.
80 million cells.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're doing all the work. We like to think of ourselves as like shepherds who keep the yeast happy and going in the direction, but it's up to them to actually make the mead.
And what does it look like when you look at them in the microscope? What do they look like?
It's this field of kind of like a vague blue with all these little dots, ball cells, and you want to make sure that they're budding happily, they're not bursting, that they're fully formed and not irregular shaped, that they're equally dispersed. It gets really cool to be able to see your mead being healthy and what it looks like immediately. And after looking at this dozens of times, you develop this sense of just what a healthy fermentation looks like as soon as you get the slide on the microscope. We like to invite people into imagining where that mead came from, that the bees have to visit 10,000 flowers for one sip. They'll fly 3 miles from their hive. They'll gather nectar from the flowers around the hive, and that honey will be the composite of all of those flowers, of that whole ecosystem. So that honey is unique to that hive, is unique to that place. And so when we make a mead from that honey, people are drinking that place. And so diving into the flavors of it is diving into the experience of being in that place. And it's a deep, beautiful thing. And so it's an opportunity for folks to slow down and start to pull it apart and start to associate and remember the things that the flavors and the smells light off in their mind and begin to associate their experience with this place and then have a connection that's really deep and beautiful.
So this, I'm going to gently scrape off and give back to them. And we're going to take this box. There. So start to build. So again, we see our ellipse shape. This one is interesting. Right here in the center, and it's bigger. It definitely looks like drone brood. So cute.
That's good.
Oh, wow.
See, you get the floral notes.
That's
in
amazing.
You want to tell me what you want to reach.
Here in Southern California, when I do a honey harvest, it usually has some pepper or eucalyptus. It's very earthy. It's a little on the sagey side. Then when you go into commercial honey extraction, you have opportunities to have avocado honey or citrus honey, which are basically when bees go to pollinate those crops, that's the nectar that they're foraging on. So you can really taste those flavors come through.
One sip is roughly 10,000 flowers. Yeah, do you think one of your sisters could help you do it?
With red curry paste and a myriad of Thai spices.
It's so delicious.
Sit.